Immediately as I start recording, the chainsaw of a tree being chopped down starts going. We're gathered here on this bold, blessed, and beautiful Sunday. It is, of course, Super Bowl Sunday, and I'm coming to you live from the Doheny Mansion, bought by the original Irish immigrants that first discovered oil in Los Angeles, the Doheny family. It's a beautiful surrounding of opulence, and I am here to read for you House of Leaves, the fully remastered full-color edition by Mark C. Danielewski. Danielewski. That's the way we'll do it. Anyway, here we are, picking up where we left off, page 16. What both these moments reveal is how much Will and Karen need each other, and yet how difficult they find handling and communicating those feelings. Unfortunately, critics have been less sympathetic. Following the release of the Ned Davison record, neither Karen nor Ned Davison's reputation escaped unscathed. Karen, in particular, was disseminated by a vituperative, vituperative stream of accusations from the tabloids, reputable reviewers, and even an estranged sister. Leslie Buckham blows high the roof beams when she calls Karen Green a cold bitch, plain and simple, a high fashion model, not much smarter than a radiator. That's actually pretty funny. Not much smarter than a radiator. Who grew up thinking life revolved around club owners, cocaine, and credit card limits. Watching her burble on about her weight, her children, or how much she needs Ned Davison made me want to retch. How can she say she loves a man when she's incapable of anything even remotely resembling commitment? Did I say she was a cold bitch? She's also a slut. Buckman is now alone in her opinion. Buckham is not alone in her opinion. Dale Corrigan has also pointed out that Karen was anything but a lovely housewife. Karen hardly gave up the promiscuous behavior that marked her 20s. She only became more discreet. In retrospect, the rabid speculation over Karen's infidelities seems driven by principally sexist culture, especially since so little attention was paid to Ned Davison's role in their relationship. As David LaBelle once exclaimed, if he has horns, who's to say he doesn't love hooves? If he has horns, who's to say he doesn't have hooves? Fortunately, unlike the biased treatment offered by the media, Ned Davison does not hesitate to constantly include in his film evidence of his own failings. In fact, as of late, many have called into question the accuracy of his self-portrait, observing that Ned Davison may have gone too far out of his way to cast himself in less than a favorable light. Not only does Ned Davison reveal through Karen, Chad, and Daisy how he spent the last decade perfecting a career in distance, where taking off a moment's notice to shoot Alaskan fishing boats was something that his family had to accept, even if that 3-day trip slowly evolved into a weeks and even months. He also, by the way of the film, admits to carrying around his own alienated and intensely private obsessions. As it turns out, though, the first hint concerning these dark broodings does not come from him but from Karen. Ned Davison early high-8 journal entries are so easy and mild, they rarely, if ever, allude to deeper troubles. Oh, Karen, only Karen, staring straight into the little lens brings up the problem. He mentioned Delilah again. She says in an extremely chirped tone, I've warned him if he's not going to tell me who she is, he better damn not bring her up. Part of this move south was supposed to be about putting the past all behind us. He's been pretty good, but I guess he can't control his dreams. Last night I wasn't sleeping very well. I was cold. It's the middle of May, but I felt I was lying in a freezer. I got up to get a blanket, and when I came back, he was talking in his sleep. Delilah. Just like that. Out of the blue. Only I'm certain because he said her name twice. Almost shouted it. As it turns out, Karen was not the only one who was kept in the dark about Delilah. Even friends and fellow journalists who had heard Ned Davison use the name before never received any sort of explanation. No one had any idea who she was or why she was so haunting his thoughts and conversations like some albatross. Oh, we're getting deep into the English language now. That said, while the first sequence certainly hints at the number of underlying tensions in the Davison Green family, all brought into relief by this chapter, it is crucial not to lose sight of the prevailing sense of bliss still invoked in those opening moments. After a couple of nights, Chad no longer has trouble sleeping. After a couple of days, Daisy nipped her finger heels. Her finger heels? The heater is easily repaired. Even both parents enjoy a private moment where their hands can playfully unlock and interlock. Will finally putting his arm around Karen as she, letting out a heartstring sigh, rests her head on his shoulder. In fact, it is rare to behold such a radiant optimism in anything these days, let alone in films. Each frame to replete, it's not replicate, but replete with promise and hope. Replete, that's a fucking, I don't believe I've heard that word before, replete. Now I've lost my place, you absolute fucking moron. In fact, it is rare to behold such a radiant optimism in anything these days, let alone in films. Each frame to replete with promise and hope. Ned Davison clearly cherishes the bucolic, nearly idyllic impressions of a new world. Of course, nostalgia's role in shaping the final cut must not be forgotten, especially since within a year these pieces were all Ned Davison had left. Karen and the children were a mere blur racing down the staircase. The pointillism of their pets' paws, prints caught on the dew-covered lawn, or house itself, an indefinitive shimmer, setting quietly the corner of the Scotch and ash tree lane, bathed in afternoon light. Okay. Well, looks like we're on to chapter 3 now. This seems to be another, it jumps off the high board of reality out into the air of fantasy. So, it's going to be another character piece. It's going to be another ladder 42 character piece. Hang on a second, let me adjust the mic here. I'm sorry if you're listening to it on headphones. Forgive me. Here we go. I wanted it over here. I feel it's on the edge of my neck, but I want it in the middle, you know. The last time I was in this park, I got to kiss a girl. It was very nice. Anyway, back to business. It is no accident that the photographer becomes a photographer any more than the lion tamer becomes a lion tamer. Hang on, let's do that again. It is no accident that the photographer becomes a photographer any more than a lion tamer becomes a lion tamer. Alright, okay. Anyway, we'll come back to that later. My own personal pontifications will radiate that for the rest of the day. Damn. Well, anyway. Exodus 3:11. Why Ned Davison? Why not someone else? When the great floral howls, "O my poor Spersi, O si chili concede, Ilio nati," Homer rival calls him. Wait, we're jumping off. Okay, so there's two things being written here all at the one time. I don't know how I'm expected to digest this. Is this some sort of bipolar rambling? I'll go with the first thing that's first, and then we'll come back. Okay, so we're on page 19, starting at the top. When the great Florence had Homer's rival. Homer's rival calls him picking up the track, calls him a coward, and others him to get moving because the powers above have taken a personal interest in his salvation. For hell's cartographer, the answer is mildly satisfying. For Ned Davison, however, there is no answer at all. During exploration 4, he even asks aloud, "How the fuck did I end up here?" The house responds with a resounding silence. No divine attention. Not even an AMUROC guide, AMAUROTIC. Some have suggested that the horrors Ned Davison encountered in that house were merely manifestations of his own troubled psyche. Dr. Lieben van Polt, great name, in his book, The Incident, claims the entire house is a physical inclination of Ned Davison's psychological pain. I often wonder how things might have turned out if Ned Davison had, how shall we say, done a little bit of house cleaning. While Pontiac is not alone in asserting that Ned Davison's psychology profoundly influenced the nature of those rooms and hallways, few believe it conjured up that place. The reason is simple. Ned Davison is not the first to live in the house and encountered the peril. Good use of the word there, peril. As the Davison's real estate agent, Alicia Rosenbaum, eventually revealed, the house on Ash Tree Lane has had more than a few occupants, approximately 37 owners every year. Actually, 0.37 owners every year, most of whom were traumatized in some way, considering the house was supposedly built back in the 1720s. Quite a few people have slept and suffered within those walls. If the house were indeed the product of psychological agonies, it would have to be the collective product of every inhabitant's agonies. It is no great coincidence that eventually someone with a camera and a zest for the dangerous would show up at this Mead Hall and confront. Oh shit, we're going on. Oh, that was. Now the pages got stuck together. Don't get too excited. And confront the terror at the door. Fortunately for audiences everywhere, that some possessed extraordinary visual talents. The Davison's troubles may not have created the house, but they did ultimately shape the way he faced it. The Davison's childhood was fairly bleak. His father was St. Louis salesman who worked for a string of large electronic companies, shuttling his family around the Midwest every 2 to 3 years. He was also an alcoholic and prone toward violent outbursts or disappearing for long periods of time. The Davison's mother was no better. She soon left them all to pursue a career as an actress and ended up living with a string of not-so-productive producers. Purportedly, in her own words, all she ever wanted to do was bring down the house. The Davison's father died of congestive heart failure, but his mother was just vanished. She was last seen in a Los Angeles bar, smoking a cigarette and talking about moonlight and why you could find so much of it in Hollywood. Neither Will nor his twin brother Tom ever heard from her again. Because the enormous narcissism of their parents deprived Will and Tom of suitable role models, both brothers learned to identify with absence. Consequently, even if something beneficial fortuitously entered their lives, they immediately treated it with temporary. They immediately treated it with temporary. By the time they were teenagers, they were already accustomed to the discontinuous lifestyle marked by constant threats of abandonment and the lack of emotional stability. Wow, sounds like home. Unfortunately, accustomed to, here is the synonymous and damaged by. Okay, so I gotta go back and get on the other thing now in a second. Perhaps one reason Ned Davison became so enamored with photography was the way it gave permanence to the moments that were often fleeting. That's a good one about photographers, you know, because they're always getting into that kind of thing. They're always getting up to no good, those boys. It is not difficult to understand how children would have suffered from malnutrition or starvation, need food and plenty of care if their bodies are to recover, so they can go on to lead normal lives. If, however, the starvation is severe enough, the damage will be permanent, and they will suffer physical impairments for the rest of their lives. Likewise, the children who are deprived of emotional nurturing require care and love if their sense of security and self-confidence is to be restored. However, if love is minimal and abuse high, the damage will be permanent, and the children will suffer emotional impairments for the rest of their lives. Jesus. I'm just trying to out here enjoy my Sunday, you know. Alright, anyway. Nevertheless, not even 10,000 photographs can secure a world. And so Willie Davison may have worked harder, taken greater risks, and become increasingly more successful. But he ultimately misled his feeling that his labor could make up for the love he was deprived of as a child and the ultimate sense of security which love bestows. For this, we should again revisit Ned Davison on his porch, his gaze fixed, his delicate fingers wrapped around a glass of lemonade. I just thought it would be nice to see how people move into a place and start to inhabit it, he calmly announces. Settle in, maybe put down some roots, interact hopefully, understand each other a little better. Personally, I just want to create a cozy little outpost for me and my family. A pretty innocuous and ironic remuneration, and yet it contains one particularly nettlesome word. By definition, outpost means a base, military or other, which, while safe inside, functions principally to provide protection from hostile forces found on the outside. This has always seemed a bizarre word to choose to describe a small house in the Virginia countryside, but it does shed some light on why Ned Davison undertook his project. This is, in the first place, this helps us understand why Ned Davison undertook the project in the first place. Is the sentence. More than just snapping few pictures and recording daily events with his high eights, Ned Davison wanted to use the images to create an outpost set against the transience of the world. No wonder he found it so impossible to give up his professional occupation. In his mind, abandoning photography meant submitting loss. Therefore, to revisit our two questions, why Ned Davison? Consider the practicality permeated history of the house. It was inevitable someone like Ned Davison would eventually enter the rooms. Why not someone else? Considering his own history, talent, and emotional background, only Ned Davison could have gone as deep as he did and still have successfully brought the vision back. Okay, so let's now these 2 pages are not stuck. We're on to chapter 4, but we have the part I'm excited for. We have this little character piece. Oh, nice little character piece. I'm gonna stretch my legs for a second. Oh mercy. Oh mercy. Oh mercy. I'm gonna change my position. I need a small girl to walk on my back, please, and like dig their heels in. That would be really nice. Anyway, a man can dream. Okay, here we are. Sun behind me. Let's get into this. Now, this is great light hitting the book. I just want you to know that right now. I'm very happy with this light. Very happy indeed. Okay, so it's bada bing, bada boom, and to there. Okay, so we have 3 pages. 3 pages of a character piece. All right, and then we'll go back to the reality of life. But for right now, you just sit back, enjoy the sound of my voice, and picture the words coming out of my mouth. But for Moses said to God, "Who am I that I should go to the Pharaoh and free the Israelites from Egypt?" Ed. Dante again? Again translated by Sinclair. But why? Why should I go there? Who grants it? I am not Anis. I am not Paul. A question I'm often asking myself these days. It's actually a little difficult to, oh wow, that feels really good. The cement, okay, I'll do that after this. I gotta finish this. There was too much glare coming off the book. We're gonna stand. It's just for you, all right? But why should I go there? And who granted it? I am not Anis. I am not Paul. A question I only ask in myself these days, though not the Anis Paul part. The simple answer I know. Lude woke me up at 3 a.m. to check out some dead guy's stuff. Of course, it's not really all that simple. Typically, when Lude calls me that late at night, it's because there's some party he wants to hit. He's the kind of guy who thinks Sublime is something you choke on after a shot of tequila. Maybe he's right. Not that this matters. Character piece, letter 42. Oh, Lord. Not that this matters. Someone once told me Lude's real name is Harry. Maybe he did. Though no one I know has ever called him that. Lude knows every bar, club, gatekeeper at every bar and at every club. Hollywood has also been mother milk to Lude, mother's tongue. Whatever. Unlike me, he never needs to translate, interpret, or learn in LA. He knows. He knows the drinks, he knows the addresses, and most of all, he can usually tell the difference between the women who are out to talk and those who are out to do something a little more interesting, which always interests Lude. Despite a noise that others have described as a bee battered, Lude's always surrounded by very attractive women, which is pretty much the norm for hairstylists and photographers, especially if they're good, and Lude is that. Beautiful women are always drawn to men they will keep. Women are always drawn to men who can keep them beautiful. During the past 2 years, he and I have spent a good deal of time wandering all over this odd city. We both thrive in the late hours, appreciates its sad taste, and never get in the way of each other's dreams. Even though Lude just wants more money, better parties, and prettier girls, and I want something else. I'm not sure what to call it anymore, except I know it feels roomy and it's drenched in sunlight. It's a weightless, and I know it's cheap. Probably not even real. Who can I guess why Lude and I ended up friends? I think it's mainly because he recognizes that I am game for any step he has in mind, and he enjoys the company. Of course, publicity, Lude likes to throw me plenty of rope, invariably focusing on the disjointed life I've led. He's still impressed, and in turn likes to impress others with the fact that at the age of 13 I went to work in Alaska, and by the time I was 18 had already slept in a whorehouse in Rome. Most of all, though, he loves the stories, especially the way I tell them to the girls we meet. I already got into that a little way back riff on Boxing and Birds of Paradise and some guy named Punching Bag, but they're only stories. The way I tell them, I actually have a whole bunch. Take the scars, for instance. There are a number of variations on that one. The most popular is about 2 year stint in a Japanese marine arts cult. Hang on a second. Making adjustments here. For Christ. Alright, we're coming back down to the sea. Alright, here we go. Alright, here. Okay. Hey, just hang on now. Mamma mia. Here we are now. Maybe I lost my place, alright? Just hang on now. We're all here together. We're doing it together. We're holding hands. Do. Take that for instance. There's a number of variations on that one. The most popular is my 2-year stint in a Japanese martial arts cult made up entirely of Koreans living in Idaho who on the last day of my initiation into their now defunct brotherhood made me pick up scalding metal wok using only my bare forearms. In the past, the wok has been heated in a kiln. This isn't working for me being this far away. Recently, it's been full of red-hot coals. The story's an absolute crock of shit, or should I say a wok of shit. Sorry, I know I should learn to crawl before I walk. Sorry again. I mean for not being sorry the first time, or for that matter the second time. But you see, it's so hard to argue with all these worlds of melted flesh. Oh my god. Show them your arms, Johnny Lude would say, in the most offhand top of the matter. Oh, come on. Well, alright, just this once. I roll up my left sleeve and then, taking my time, I roll up the right one. He got that in a cult in Indiana, Idaho, I correct him, and it goes on from there. I'm sure most women know it's bull, but hey, they're entertained. I also think it's somewhat of a relief not to hear the true story. I mean, you look at the hair sweeping all the way up from my wrists to my elbows, and you have to take a deep breath and ask yourself, who do I really want to know what happened there? In my experience, most people don't. They usually look away. My stories actually help them look away. Maybe they even help me look away, but I guess that's something new. We all created stories to protect ourselves. It's March now. Late March. 3 months have gone by since Lude called me up that night. 3 months since I dragged away a black, unmarked, paint-splattered trunk, which, as I quickly found out, was one of those old cedar-lined jobbers, built in Utah, New York. A special thanks to the MC Clap Company, completed with rusted latches, rotting leather handles, and a lifetime of digressions and disappointments. To date, I've counted over 200 rejection letters from various literary journals, publishing houses, and even a few words of discouragement from prominent professionals in the East Coast universities. No one wanted the old man's words except me. What can I say? I'm a sucker for abandoned stuff, misplaced stuff, forgotten stuff, old stuff, which despite the light of progress and the unheralded, unheralded, unheralded passings, unmourned, well, you get the drift. As a counsellor once told me, a counsellor for disaffected youths, I might add, you like that crap because it reminds you of you. Couldn't have said it better or put it more bluntly, but even disagree with it? Neither. I couldn't disagree with it either. Seems pretty dead on a probability that has everything to do with the fact that when I was 10, my father died, and almost 9 years later, my crazy Shakespeare mother followed him. A story I've already lived and really don't need to retell here. Still, for whatever reason, this is my counsellor for disaffected youth. My counsellor for disaffected youth could never explain, accepting his analysis hardly altered the way I felt. I just glanced over at the trunk the first time I saw it. I mean, when I discovered what was inside, it appalled me. Like I was staring at an old guy's corpse. Now it's just a trunk. Of course, I also remember thinking I was going to toss it by the end of the week. That was before I started reading. Long before I began putting it all together. You know, this is still the simple answer. I guess the complicated one I don't feel like getting into. Bada bing and bada boom. Alright, coming up on the next episode of Nicholas Toppin Tales, we will be reading Chapter 4. Thank you for being here. Enjoy your Super Bowl Sunday, whatever the part of the world you're in. Worship the American entertainment that is football sports. Go team, go sports. Do we have any more of this? I'll show you some of this. Do you want to see this? You want to see what it looks like drowned in sunlight? Somehow, somewhere. Come back to me. Look at me. Here we are. Oh, camera. Somehow, somewhere. Thank you very much. Thank you. Have a great day. God bless.